Hey everybody, I so wish I was there with you, but I know you're in great hands. I know you're having a great time in this webinar, and unfortunately I'm traveling, so I couldn't be here to do my very favorite session. However, I will be in the second webinar that your community will be having, so if you want to come and be with me face to face, come on over there and we can do a little bit of chit chat. But in the meantime, I thought that what I would do is to record some of the more important pieces, and so I'm going to show you a few slides and just talk about some of the pieces that I wanted to share with you, and then of course your community leaders will lead you in a discussion and re-emphasize the most important parts. So I'm excited about all that's going on in the PLP Community Hub. If you haven't had a chance to get in there and get active, that's where the action is. That's where we need you. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk a little bit about the project. So let me cut off this video so that you can concentrate on the slides, and we'll get right to it. So the main thing that we're interested in talking about is really looking at this idea of where we've been and where we are now. Powerful learning practice really is a learning journey. It's a transformational kind of process, and it's different for each one of us. And that's important for you to know, that as you're going through this really is about you, about who you are as a learner, about your journey as you're connecting and collaborating and synthesizing information. It's also about us, the collective us, and what we're learning as we collaborate and co-construct knowledge, both in your Pick One groups and also with your teams face to face, and then in the large group in the PLP Community Hub with all the people that are there that are participating in Powerful Learning Practice this year. So it's really important that we think about where we've been and then of course where we are now and where we're going. Now, one of the things that we've been trying to do is really structure a lot of what you're going through around certain aspects of what we consider to be solid 21st century teaching and learning goals. And we really do use ISTE's standards to help us think through that. And one of the ways that we want teams to work together is to take a look at those standards, have some powerful conversations around where is the school now, where are we going, where's our team, what kind of vision do we have for our school, and that as your team starts to grow and become a true collegial kind of professional learning community, then you'll start through a viral piece start to be the catalyst that causes that change within your own schools inside your own spheres of influence. So this is where we're going. We've been spending some time really getting to know the environment, getting to know each other. We've been immersing ourselves in different conversations that have been taking place and really starting to think about what does it mean from a 30,000-foot view to be a connected learner. Now what we're going to do is we're really going to start in this next phase of Powerful Learning Practice to really start to focus on becoming a connected learner. Connected in the PLP Community Hub and then also connected outside of the hub in the network. We're going to also be working really hard at creating a collaborative culture. You're going to find that there's going to be some things that we're going to be doing that are really co-construction of ideas, where we're going to come together and think deeply. And instead of it being individuals, it really is going to be focused on your team. We want your team to be developing as critical friends, the kinds of friends that aren't afraid to have really tough conversations. So that means that you guys really need to start to trust each other, start to build a culture of trust, start to have some of those conversations, respectfully push back a little bit, and really try to talk deeply and try to make sense of everything that's going on. We're also going to be looking at more deeply on how to 21st centuryise our teaching. Over the next probably 6 to 8, 10 weeks, we're going to be visiting other people's classrooms that are using 21st century teaching and learning techniques really well. These are people that are really established, and we'll be having you sign up for those virtual classroom visits. We're also going to be doing some lesson plan study around what does it look like when you take an analog lesson plan and then you really think about it from a 21st century perspective. And we'll be using the TPAC model to help us think about that relationship between content, pedagogy, and technology. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is becoming an action researcher. And so tonight, what I want to do right now is talk a little bit about that piece. We'll be developing our personal learning networks, and we're going to try to get you to be even more brave, even more bold, even more courageous about sharing, and being transparent in the way you share. Because at Powerful Learning Practice, if you've been reading your handbook, you know that we believe that by transparently sharing, you really are teaching. That transparently sharing what you've learned is an excellent way to teach, if you will, especially in the 21st century environment. So what is action research? I bet some of you out there have actually done action research. So what I'd love for you to do is, if you have been involved in action research, not research as a teacher individually, but collaborative action research. If you've done that before, will you click on the smiley face right now so that we know that you've done that before? All right. Good. When I go back and watch, I can see how many have actually been involved in that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait just a moment and give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your action research experiences, those of you that have had them. And I'm going to cut off the recording and pause the recording and give you a second to talk about that. All right. Well, I hope that you had an opportunity to talk about some of your action research experiences. And so I thought I would kind of lay the groundwork a little bit about what we mean by action research. Now, the teams in Powerful Learning Practice work together to develop an action research project that really relates to your own particular context, your own particular culture. So the action research process isn't a one-size-fits-all. We won't all be doing the same thing. But action research in a nutshell is really where your team is going to examine very systematically, and contextually a particular aspect, issue, problem, possibility that you're interested in. So it might be that in your school you're really interested in increasing writing scores, or it might be that you're really interested in creating a professional development model that'll cause shift in the rest of the faculty, or it might be that we had one group of independent school educators that were interested in looking at what the Harkness table would look like if you made it Harkness 2.0. Or maybe it's something that you're interested in terms of something more affective, like you want to see what you could do to increase motivation in your students or in the faculty. So the assumptions that we base the action research on, that we're going to take you through, is that it's collaborative, that educators, both principals, teachers, they work on problems that they've identified for themselves. So we don't all have the same action research project. It's very different, and it's based on your passions and your interest. We also believe that educators become more effective when they look at their own work and then really analyze it, give their own inferences, and really decide, what needs to shift and what needs to change from their own perspective. We believe that action research helps educators be in charge of really figuring out what works, what doesn't work within our own particular context. We also believe that action research isn't done by individuals. We think action research is a collaborative approach, and we think that administrators and teachers are involved in that, and that they all kind of take the same role as they're going through it. There isn't like a hierarchy where administrators have some type of role where they kind of lay out what's going to be done, but rather everybody truly works collaboratively, and that we feel like that really helps with the distributive leadership model, the more that and creates a collaborative culture, if you will. So those are some of the assumptions that we have about action research. All right. We also think that sometimes it helps you to understand what action research is if we look at what it's not. And so when we say action research, if you're thinking, oh my gosh, our team's going to have to write this long paper and we're going to have to do all this research, it's not that. The focus is really on the word action. It's not problem solving in the sense that we're really trying to find out what's wrong. In other words, we go in and we say, why aren't these kids writing scores higher? It's not that kind of research. Rather, it's trying to figure out how can we improve. So you approach it from an appreciative perspective. How can we get higher writing scores? Or how can we increase motivation? How can we get better at doing something? So it's really about gathering knowledge on how to be more effective or to improve something, whatever the issue, the possibility, or the problem that you're looking at. So action research isn't really doing research where you find all the information about something and then you, from finding all that out, you start to apply it to the situation, like evaluation, where you do an evaluation of a program and you figure out everything that diagnostically is wrong and then you go back in and everybody changes their behavior. So it's not like that. And it's really not about why. It's more about how. How can we change the instruction, or how can we create a really dynamic teacher-owned kind of professional development that's going to get everybody motivated about shifting. It's about how do we start to implement technologies effectively, or how can I become the kind of language arts teacher that's going to be able to naturally embed 21st century skills, but also cause deep learning in my students and in the curriculum. So it's really about changing behaviors, doing research that's going to allow us to change behaviors, and as a result, we really find out what's important. All right, so basically the reason that we're doing the action research is so that each team can apply what they're learning through powerful learning practice and have some coaches that'll see you through that and create a legacy project. And the legacy project is something that goes on long after this year that you're involved with powerful learning practice. So the school teams, they're going to have an opportunity to showcase, reflect, and celebrate your success and share your action research at the culminating event. You'll take one of two focuses. Either you're going to look at a curricular focus or you're going to look at a PD kind of focus when you do your action research. You're also going to have a way that you're going to be very transparent along the way so that other people can follow along and replicate and look at what you're doing if they wanted to. For instance, the Australians that we've just worked with, the PLP Connect U group, they have just gone through and each of the teams created a blog, and as they had their meetings, they put up their minutes, they each reflected on the team blog, and so we're going to ask you to do something very similar to that, and there'll be more information about that as we get further along in the project. You can see here from this diagram, it really shows you that you can have individual teacher research, collaborative, school-wide, or district-wide action research. It can take different aspects. We're going to be looking at the second column where we're going to do collaborative action research as a team or as several teams. So this might be that your team, that several classrooms are involved. It might even be that several schools are involved if we wanted to have cross-team action research projects so that you could find somebody else in the PLP community that's going through this that maybe is interested in what your team is interested in, and you could work on something together, and the coaches will help you with that. So here are the steps involved in the project. There's 4 basic themes that are involved in action research. Empowerment. So the people that are going through are empowered in that you're doing this for yourself. You're making the choices. You're making the inferences. You're deciding how to revisit this and figure out how to improve. It's also one of the themes has to do with participation. So it's really about active involvement. Acquisition of knowledge, figuring out how to get better, and social change because you're doing it collaboratively and you're working as a team. So there's 5 phases of inquiry. Identification of the problem or the possibility, and that's what we're going to be working on for the next few weeks. I don't want your team, listen to me, I do not want your team to jump in and try to take the project all the way through. These next few weeks, up until after the Christmas break, we just want you to meet, start to think about your problem, go back to where you talked about your wondering, what you wondered, start to think about what would be something cool that we could do our action research around that we're really interested in, that we're really passionate about, that fits for our school or our local context. Then there's the collection and organization of data. So one of the things you do is you go out there and you try to figure out, maybe you're going to take a needs assessment, or you're going to try to figure out where you are now. You're going to gather some data that kind of tells you something about the process or the problem or the issue that you're looking at, and then you can make some inferences about that data. So you interpret the data. This tells us we need to do this, or that everybody's here, or that kids are here. Maybe you look at writing scores if you're going to look at writing. Maybe you're going to look at writing samples. You're going to talk about the kids' samples and what they mean. Maybe you're going to look at portfolios, and maybe you're going to get teachers, ask some teacher perceptions, do some kind of survey. And then you're going to interpret all that data, and then you come up with some type of action research project, something you're going to implement based on the data that you think will really give you information about how to improve those writing scores or how to get better. Then you reflect on what you see. And there's lots of examples that we're going to show you, so don't worry about if it's foggy right now and you don't understand. And it'll be a real learning process as you go through as well. So basically what happens is you come up with the problem, the opportunity that you want to address. So do you want to look at test scores or the ability to collaborate or morale or increasing tech use? So you just want to be specific as possible. One of the best ways to do that is the team gets together face to face and you just start brainstorming. You start throwing out all kinds of different ideas. You don't throw anything out at first. You don't have to decide that day. You really want to give it some thought because you're going to be living with this project for a while, and it's going to be something that really will become a legacy. We have people that have said to us, you just won't believe, where we've gone with this project, and we've had all kinds of fantastic things happen 2-3 years down the road after they developed it. You idea the issue, and you want it to, whatever you're going to do, you want it to be not a yes-no question. It needs to be some type of larger kind of contextual thing that you're looking at. And when you decide what your issue is, be very concise and meaningful. Don't give jargon, like don't say students more engaged unless you really talk about what do we mean by engaged. Okay, so you really want to think about, is it something that we're interested in? Is it something that's worth the time? Is this something that's really going to make us better? Does it fit our school improvement goals? Does it fit the culture of our school? Contextually, is it something that makes sense? Then the next thing that's going to happen is the team is going to kind of divvy it up, and you're going to go out and look and see what other people have done. Who else has addressed this? Go to the PLP Community Hub main and ask if anybody else has done this. Go out to Twitter and use the PLP Network tag and ask who else has done this. Ask people in your school or other schools, your friends. And then we'll get into really thinking about how we're going to propose a solution and, the evaluation, the timeline, and the documentation. Now, on purpose, I'm not going to go deep into this. You're going to have access to this slide share, but I don't want to go deep into this yet because we really want to work on the first piece. But you're going to be assigned a coach, a connected coach, who's going to really help your team think deeply about this. We'll also be having a project workshop. I'm going to bring in an author that writes exclusively on action research, who's going to work with teams. We're going to work one-to-one with you, so there'll be lots of things that you can do. Here are some ideas when you're gathering your data in the beginning. All these kinds of things that you can do. Multiple sources of data is always better because once you look at these different data points, then you can do a better interpretation and come up with a better kind of action research piece that you're going to do. Evaluation is really important too. One of the things that we really push people to is to ask, how will you know that you were successful? What would it look like if this came out the way you thought that it was going to come out and you implemented the way you did? And then based on the data that you gather afterwards, you'll know if you were successful or not. And sometimes failure teaches us so much more and helps us be more successful in the long run. So it's interesting that some action research projects don't go at all where people thought they were going to go. There's also lots of support that you're going to have, different ways that we're going to be helping you. Like I said, you'll each even have a coach that's assigned. The coaches are coming in January, and they're going to be working with you. Your community leaders will be doing small group Illuminate kinds of things. We're meeting with the team leaders and going to be talking to them. There'll be a team project group room where you can go and get help there. So lots of ways for you to get help. So don't worry about needing help. And we have a plan. In the beginning, you're just going to really try to figure out what it is you want to do and start talking to other people and really just figure out what is it we wonder about, what is it that we are passionate about, what is it that we'd like to do, and then kind of bounce around the idea, do we want to co-create with another team? Do we want to maybe make it a collective action research piece farther than just our team, and start making some of those contacts? And that's all we want you doing from now until we come back after the Christmas break. So I'm going to close now and see if there's any questions, and if there are, your community leaders can help you think about those. All right? So I hope that this has been helpful. It's not meant to answer every question about action research. We're bringing this to you in bite-sized pieces. I will be creating an action research room. These slides will go up in there so you can go back and look at them. There'll be videos about action research. We'll be meeting with you. There'll be posts that go out. But this is really just to kind of lay the project out and let you start thinking about it. So I'm going to let you see if you have any questions or anything with your community leader, and then we'll come back in just a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about the TPAC model.